I took this picture on a hot day in May of 2001. I rented a plane this day to go have some fun with my son Mitchell. He'd never been in a small plane before, and I was lucky. My dad had a pilot's license when I was a kid, and we'd go down to Chilliwack Airport, we'd rent a little Cessna, and we'd go flying around the Fraser Valley, over Baker, over Shem, Harrison Lake. It was beautiful. And I wanted Mitchell to have that experience. I wanted him to see how fortunate he was to grow up where he was growing up. And I also took a camera so I could take some pictures. You see, I was born in this beautiful place called Chilliwack, British Columbia, Canada. And on this day, like so many other days, I couldn't see the mountains from the ground because the smog was too thick. And it's this smog that it would cause your eyes to burn. You could feel it in your breathing. You could smell it in the air. That caused a frustration that caused some friends of mine and myself almost 20 years ago right here in Chilliwack to form a company and try and do something about it. But it came with some challenges. First one is we weren't engineers. Second one, we'd never run a high-tech business. And third one, kind of a little bit important in this scenario, we knew nothing about zero emissions or clean technologies. Nothing. Anyway, but we did wonder if. We wondered if maybe, because of the way that we thought, ever since we were kids, the one thing we had was deep curiosity. We liked solving problems. We liked inventing things that solve problems, so we didn't see this as any different. So we wondered if there was a way to do it, and we wondered if maybe we might be able to play part in it. So I hold in my hand the tailpipe exhaust of a hydrogen fuel cell, pure water. Hydrogen fuel cells enable us to have a sustainable future with zero emissions. They can power everything from cell phones to laptops, from houses to office buildings, scooters to cars, even semis to trains, boats, and planes. Pretty well anything that you can imagine that requires electricity or a turning shaft, you could use a fuel cell for. And I'll never forget, this is why I got hooked on fuel cells. I'll never forget the first time I saw one work. I was at this place and a gentleman came in and he put this little hydrogen bottle, this little fuel cell, and this little electric fan on this desk in front of me. And he turned the valve on the hydrogen bottle and the fan started to spin. And I just thought this was the craziest thing I ever saw. And what I was told was happening is that the hydrogen was having an electrochemical reaction inside the fuel cell with the oxygen from the air. And the electron was being extracted in this reaction, electricity, and it was going to the electric motor to run that little fan. And in the fuel cell, the exhaust that was being produced was pure water. Again, how cool is that? I also learned that the hydrogen that was fueling this fuel cell can be produced from renewable energy like solar and wind through a process we call electrolysis, where what we do is we take electricity and we put it into the water and we split the H2O into H and O. We capture the hydrogen, we can store it, and we can use it to refuel, say, a fuel cell car for better than 500 kilometers of range in under 5 minutes of fill time, which is definitely the main advantage for fuel cell technology over some other technologies for zero emissions vehicles. I also learned that that hydrogen can be produced from biomass, manure, garbage, and natural gas in the form of steam methane reforming. And there's lots of other methods that are being developed in universities and research centers all around the world all the time for us to be able to get hydrogen. So all of this inspired a few crazy, curious inventor guys, that would be AKA my friends and myself, to come up with this concept for an integrated fuel cell powered electric motor. Something really cool and cutting edge. And the whole idea was, instead of a fuel cell being a separate box running an electric motor with wires, we'd actually take a fuel cell and we'd integrate it, package it inside of an electric motor. And to do this, we came up with this clever idea, which was a wedge-shaped fuel cell. That's like a piece of pizza, and it's kind of like putting a pizza inside of an electric motor. And in doing this wedge-shaped fuel cell, we had no idea, but that wedge-shaped fuel cell was going to lay a path going forward for our company to develop a game-changing zero-emissions fuel cell technology. But this engine didn't come without its challenges. First of all, building fuel cells is not a trivial thing to do. It's very, very hard. And nobody made wedge-shaped fuel cells. We couldn't just go buy this. And we went to some companies to ask, if they'd help and they had no idea what we were doing or the purpose of it, so they politely, I guess would be a nice way to put it, declined. And so we had to build a fuel cell, and that's exactly what we set out to do. So on June the 21st of 2000, right here in Chilliwack, our company was born. Ironically, it was summer solstice, the day with the most sunlight, and that was just by coincidence. We didn't do that on purpose. A gentleman had caught wind of this project that we were doing in Chilliwack, of this fuel cell powered electric motor and this fuel cell. And we had met with him, and he recommended to us that we go to this place called the Institute for Fuel Cell Innovation, which is out near UBC. It's the National Research Council of Canada's Center of Excellence for Fuel Cell Development. So when we went there, we showed them our fuel cell concept, and they got really intrigued and very enthused, very curious, because they thought we might actually have something important, something that would had some fundamental improvements for fuel cell design and performance. So they wanted to work with us, and yeah, that's awesome. We'd love to work with you too. And beyond that, they offered to support us. Thank you for your tax dollars, I might add, but to support us with government grants so that we could hire engineers and consultants. We could build prototypes, and we built a lot of prototypes. Do testing in the labs there, the hydrogen-safe labs at this facility. Even to get some custom engineering work done, like computational work where we would look at simulations of what a fuel cell might do when we did it on the computer. And also to attend fuel cell conferences, so we could dive right in, go right into the sessions, and learn and go to the trade show floor and start talking to the vendors and the suppliers and the different companies. So all of a sudden, this little company out of nowhere in Chilliwack, British Columbia, is getting federal government support by the National Research Council of Canada at this world-renowned facility in Vancouver. It was very exciting. So having to build our own fuel cell, we started where I like to start with things like this, is we're at the United States Patents Database. It's a great place to go because all the companies will have a disclosure there of what they're doing. And you might not know what's going on right now in their lab, but you have a pretty good idea of the direction they're taking with their fuel cell development. And I want you to understand at this point that there's two main components to a hydrogen fuel cell. There's what we call a membrane electrode assembly and a flow field plate. The membrane electrode assembly is the yellow part in the middle, and you can see the light bulb. That's where the magic's taking place. The chemical reaction is happening there. Then you have what's called a flow field plate, and that's the part we're going to talk about. Flow field plate is this part here. It's made from graphite or stainless steel, and its job is to flow the hydrogen on one side and the oxygen in the air on the other side of the membrane electrode assembly. And in doing this, it's a lot more complicated than you might think it is. So as we were going through the database, we noticed something. You'll see here there's about 20 channels. This is a rectangular flow field. It's called a straight channel flow field. And every one of those channels will be about 1 millimeter wide by about 1 millimeter high, and it will stay that dimension the entire length of that channel till it gets to the other end. And what we noticed on the patents database is that where the designs were maybe different in the pattern. Some were straight, some were zigzag, some were what we call serpentine. But the thing they all had in common was that that channel stayed the same dimension. And that was different than us. We had this wedge-shaped fuel cell, and when we put in our channels, they turn out to be tapered. And I want you to understand that if you have something that's tapered, if you go this way, gas will slow down as it's going through. If you taper it, gas will speed up. So basically, we knew that we had an opportunity to manipulate the gas flow inside this fuel cell, and none of these other fuel cells did. And that made us very curious to look even further as to what this might mean. And what we discovered is that all those fuel cells that had that common problem had a bigger problem with performance. They were losing up to 50% of their capable power, leaving it on the table because of inadequate fuel cell design. And that got us very excited because we thought we might actually hold a key to unlocking this, picking up this power in a fuel cell that was just being left on the table through our tapering flow channels in our fuel cell. And if we were to be able to do this, it would be an immense accomplishment. First of all, if we were to say, take this and make it so it's all red and there's no gradient, we'd be the first company in the world to ever do that. And the commercial value of that in what we could do with fuel cell stacks, which is when you put a whole bunch of cells together, would be immense, because we actually would be able to provide a fuel cell that was the same size and cost, but gave 50% more power. Or we could attack the big problem with fuel cells, which is cost. We could go the inverse way, and we could have a fuel cell that put out the same power, but it was 30 to 40% lighter, smaller, and most important, less expensive. That's why we looked at this, and we took it very serious to solve this particular problem. So over the course of the next few years, we were having some great success in the lab with developing our taper channel fuel cell. We were getting improved performance. In fact, we were getting better than baseline. And baseline would be like 3M as an example, will sell us membrane electrode assemblies. They would give us a spec, and they would say, it should perform this well. And in the lab, we were getting better performance than we were told we should be getting in optimum performance. It was kind of odd, but we understood why. The reason is because we knew that those flow fields I was showing you with the problem, that's what they were using in their lab. Everybody was using that, so it made sense to us that our tapering channels were having an effect. We were getting better performance, and that was really exciting. But it wasn't exciting enough. We wanted better. We wanted to pick up all of that lost power. That was our goal. So what we did is we developed a mathematical model that would calculate the channel's profile from the inlet to the outlet and along the length of that channel to compensate for this loss of oxygen and this accumulation of water so we could get it out in an optimum way. And the funny part is the math gave us a solution. And the solution was it should be a natural exponential, sorry for the scientific stuff here, but a natural exponential curve in that channel, and it should be based on the number E. The number E. I'm not even pulling your leg, it's real. I had to put it up here just because I thought you would think I'm pulling your leg. It's 2.71828 to 10 million decimal places, and I memorized them all, and I'm not going to bore you with it. But anyway, E is one of the most important numbers in nature and in mathematics, and it defines growth and the rate of change. In fact, it's also used in calculating compound interest. And if you think about it, that's kind of what compound interest is doing. So it was really unique. And if you think about it even further, here we are with this mission to help Mother Nature, and Mother Nature turns around and says, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you do this? It works for me. So we did, and we filed the patent, and we went to the lab to prove that it worked. The National Research Council sent in an expert to put together some studies and was going to write a peer review that would be submitted to the government who was supporting us. And it was basically to see whether it was worthwhile spending your hard-earned tax dollars on our little company and our idea. So the rubber was about to meet the road. This really mattered to us. We had to have this work. You must be wondering if it did. Are you wondering if it did? Well, I'm standing here, so you already know the answer. But anyway, but you must be wondering, how well did it work? Did we pick up all the power, just a little bit of the power? And did it matter to cost, the Achilles heel to zero emissions technologies? Well, I'm happy to say that yes, it did. In fact, eFlow, which is what we named it, managed to pick up nearly all of that lost power. Almost all of it. And it's called Uniform Current Distribution, and we're the first company, the first in the world to ever have obtained this. And thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it is very exciting. We're the first in the world to ever obtain it, and there's not a big list of others that have. It's extremely difficult to do. More important is cost. What happened is that 50% I was talking about, that 30 to 40, that came true. We actually are today producing fuel cell stacks that have 50%, sometimes more, power than other fuel cells in the market and around the world. And we're also producing them at 30 to 40% less cost and weight and size as well. And what this does, and this is the big deal, is it allows us to offer right now today with zero subsidies being required at the cost of diesel, cost of hydrogen, cost to build both systems for real in this world today. A solution, a zero emission solution right now that can be delivered at cost parity to diesel. The same cost to own and operate today as diesel. We don't have any more excuses now as to why we have to have dirty technologies and polluting our air. We took a big chunk of that excuse away. So we've done it, it's real. There it is in that box. Loop Energy, our company, we're now producing fuel cell stacks and fuel cell engines for many medium and heavy-duty truck applications, including yard trucks, semi-trucks, transit buses, garbage trucks, street sweepers, delivery trucks, to name a few. And our first zero-emissions vehicle we delivered last year, and it's a yard truck. And a yard truck is that vehicle at a port or a distribution center that hauls the containers around, moves them around. And they're on diesel, and they're very dirty. They're usually right near a city or disadvantaged communities. So it's important to do this. And we did it with our partner in China, China National Heavy Duty Truck Company, the largest heavy duty truck manufacturer in China and one of the largest in the world. We are also working with Peterbilt to develop zero emissions Class 8 trucks for use at ports as drayage trucks and for regional haul applications. And the list of companies we're working with just continues to grow. The importance of getting the dirty diesel trucks off the road cannot be overstated. Taking just one dirty diesel truck and replacing it with a zero emissions truck like our solution can be equivalent to removing 15 cars from the road and replacing them with 15 zero emissions cars. That's a big deal. Our improvement, our substantial improvement in performance, pave the way, close the economic gap that existed to pave the way for us to start adopting zero emissions technologies in many different applications around the world. There's no more excuses. I want to see the mountains. I want my son and my kids to see the mountains. I want you and your kids to see the mountains. I want our friends around the world, like in China, in India, to see the mountains. And I have to say, this all started from just some guys in Chilliwack. They were just really curious, super curious, all the time, always asking, I wonder if. I just wonder if. And I have to ask you, are you wondering if? Are you staying curious? Because a lot of times, that next corner, that next hurdle or wall that's in front of you, the energy to get around the corner or over that hurdle are wrapped up in those simple words. Just staying curious and wondering if. And I hope you do. Thank you very much.